All right, everybody here. Let me introduce Samantha Rogers. Samantha, you still at ArenaNet?
Yes, currently at ArenaNet doing just
Awesome.
creature art.
Great. Okay, well, in this conversation, we just kind of want to unpack a little bit about what you do. I know a lot of people that want to be creature artists, and then they have to be like, oh, they have to go into character, they have to go into environment because maybe there's not a ton of creature jobs out there per se. So this is going to be fun to kind of hear about you and your job and all of that good stuff. But why don't we start with just like a brief explanation, make sure we're all on the same page. Like, what is it you do at ArenaNet? What is a creature artist?
Yeah, well, at ArenaNet we do have a creature and character art team, and then so I'm specifically on the creature art team, which is basically um, everything that is not like an armor or anything worn by the player character
Got it.
or anything like it doesn't. I don't make any of the stuff that's like one of the five playable races in the game, basically.
Okay.
So we have a team making like everything, like all the creatures and just which is sometimes like humanoid. And then we have a team just making like just armors for the players to wear and stuff.
Oh, cool.
That's basic summary of it.
All right. And I think I screwed up. Can you share your screen again?
Yeah, I saw that kind of threw me off there for a second.
Yeah. Threw me off. I looked at it and I'm like, I'm not sharing my screen. Oh no, I got to share my screen. Oh shit, it's not my screen that's getting shared. All right. So
I'll have to look.
basically you're creating, did I understand that correct? You're creating the non-player characters?
Yeah, basically anything that doesn't have anything to do with the playable characters
Yep.
or like the so our game Guild Wars 2 has five playable races in it.
Yep.
Basically anything that is not one of those five.
Awesome. Okay. How'd you score this gig?
Well, I posted my work on ArtStation one day, and the team found me through there and started talking to me and did an art test, did an interview. And then next thing I know, I'm moving from California to Seattle and doing creature art.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did the art test take? Can you give us some sense of
Mm,
that? Because I know a lot of people get confused with art tests and am I taking too long? And
I think they, if I remember correctly, gave me 2 weeks,
hmm
and I had to make like a whole creature. They gave me like an older Guild Wars 2 concept, I believe,
yeah,
and just gave me 2 weeks to do it, 2 weeks to sculpt it and texture and render it, I believe.
cool. And they wanted it fully in game kind of situation.
I
Marmoset
just
maybe.
rendered it, yeah, in Marmoset.
Okay, great. Not rigged, obviously.
I mean, I did pose it in ZBrush.
Okay, cool.
I
All
didn't
right.
just leave it in T-pose.
How'd you train for this?
You mean like how did I learn 3D art?
Yeah.
I started learning 3D and when I was in high school. I think I was in 10th grade. And I just one day was like, oh, I want to make creatures like what they look like in the movies. Just want to make them look like that. So I got Mudbox from the Autodesk student
hmm
program thing, which was pretty easy to get to do, even though I wasn't like in a college or anything. So I just downloaded Mudbox and started like sculpting creatures out of the primitives that they give you. I haven't used Mudbox in a while now. I don't know if they have like some kind of Dynamesh thing. But at the time they just had like cubes and spheres.
hmm
So I would just sketch creatures and then sculpt them on my own time in Mudbox. And then that eventually led to learning Maya because I had to like make this thing called base meshes
Yeah.
and then bring them into Mudbox so I could do like UVs and stuff.
Yeah.
So that led to Maya, and then once I graduated high school, I knew I either wanted to go do art school or freelance. Those I felt like those were my two options.
hmm
And at that point, when I graduated high school, I'd already been doing 3D stuff for like 2 or 3 years. So I figured might as well just start freelancing because school's just gonna like reteach Maya and everything to me, I figured.
Right.
So I just started like doing little small freelance things for like indie game devs who needed like characters made and rigged here and there.
Yeah.
And that just got me experience and got me like experience not only making 3D models, but also working with people. And that also led me to learning Blender and working in Unity because I didn't want to buy Maya. So I just learned Blender instead since it was free.
Yeah, I've
And
got
then,
several students in that position. It totally works.
yeah. Yeah, I still actually use Blender at work. I'm like a Blender missionary. I just tell everyone about it. It's so great. But that then I eventually started learning ZBrush in like 2015 because I knew I would have to eventually learn it.
Yeah.
That's what I would have to use at work, and turned out pretty great. Good choice. And then that same year that same year I was posting stuff on ArtStation for the first time. I had done like a couple models, like 3 or 4 models that I had been doing in between freelance stuff, posted it on ArtStation and got on trending. And yeah, went to ArenaNet.
Wow. So out of high school, right to freelancing, and then from freelancing straight to ArenaNet, huh?
Yeah.
No college, no $100,000 in debt.
I did do one online Gnomon class.
Yeah.
But I kind of waited a little late to do that because I was like, I did that in 2015, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
And when I was taking the class, it was a lot of like, I believe it was like some kind of character art for production class. And it was, even though it said it was like an advanced class online, they ended up just going through like a lot of the Maya and ZBrush basics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I could have used something like that like right out of high school.
Yeah.
But I kind of waited. I wanted to just use free YouTube and stuff, education.
Yeah.
As long as I could, I guess.
Yeah.
But it works just watching YouTube videos and reading stuff on Polycount and looking at people's sketches. Just doing a lot of that and doing speed sculpts. That's a really good way to just improve without having to go to school.
What's the first thing you posted on ArtStation?
Oh, one of these 3 things down here.
The rotary
I think I
phone.
posted them all in the same day.
Okay.
See, this is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think this was like the last thing I did before coming to ArenaNet for my portfolio.
Okay.
But I did this, and I did this, and I did this all pretty close, all like in 2015.
All right, hold on one second. Edison, are you in here? You see that rotary phone? We gotta get your phone out there. Yeah, Edison. In the boot camp, we have the first thing we have people do in the boot camp is the first 6 weeks, really, they just focus on a prop, and we just want that to be like a win.
Yeah.
And just so they see the whole pipeline, and they get that done. And Edison's was a phone very similar to that. Very cool.
Yeah, I think this was like one of the first few things I did that year. I just wanted to. I think I was still learning Substance at the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pick something that I could do some interesting textures on and just do it well.
Great. So what was the job you were hired for? Was it creature artist, or was it something else like prop or?
Yeah, it was I just went straight to creatures. When I came to ArenaNet, we were doing our second expansion for Guild Wars 2. And so I just started making ambient creatures for the expansion. So like I was doing stuff like this, just little one-shot kill creatures that just kind of run around the map, and they don't really matter. they just add a little extra life.
Yeah.
So I was doing stuff like that, and then I eventually got to like do some bigger creatures, and then I think I spent like 6 months on the expansion team just doing stuff like this, and then they moved me to a different team called the Living World team, where we just keep making live content to put into the game every few months. So when I moved to that team, I got to do a boss creature, my first boss creature, which was this guy. And at ArenaNet, the creature team, we don't always get concepts provided to us for creatures because we don't have a huge concept art team most of the time. I think
Mm-hmm.
they have to do like environments and stuff, and we have a lot of like hand painted loading screens that are just really beautiful, but then we don't always get concepts on the creature team. So we have to do a lot of our own concepting on the creature team.
Okay.
So this guy, I just kind of like had some sketches that the animator had done that I took, and then I just kind of started doing my own thing with it. So it was a big learning experience. Finally getting to do like a big creature that I had to design myself. Work with a lot of people on it.
Okay, I want to get back to that, but before we get to that idea and really start to talk about your process, I love the story that you're skipping school, you're getting right in there and practicing. So what did you have to show, or did they see like one thing on ArtStation that they responded to? What did you have to show, or did they have to see for them to start the process of interviewing you?
Yeah, I think it was this wolf guy that I did. It's currently got like 200 likes. At the time I think it had like 80 or 100, and it was on trending, and they just saw it there, and then that leads them to the rest of your portfolio from trending.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And I felt like at the time though this was one of my better pieces because he's
Okay.
obviously a creature and other props as well.
And what do you think is like really connects with ArenaNet on this? Because one of the things that we face as game artists or just 3D artists really is there's so much diversity in the style. And
Hmm.
so I find a lot of students are wondering, do I focus on just a Blizzard concept? Do I focus on a Naughty Dog? Because I always ask people like, where do you want to work? And they'll say Naughty Dog, and I'm like,
Hmm.
why?
Yeah.
And then eventually somebody might say, well, I really want, stylized and whatnot, but I think I have to do realism. So what do you
Hmm.
think are the things that, in this particular piece that we're looking at, that make a difference, that made a difference anyways for ArenaNet? What is it that they look for in work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Uh, they never specifically told me, but I think it's just sort of the fact I don't. I think like I have other realistic stuff in my portfolio with realistic textures. I feel like this guy, I always see him as a little more on the stylized end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't really, with Guild Wars 2 creatures specifically, I'm not sure if I would call them, I'm not sure if I would put them specifically in the realistic or stylized category.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to read well because a lot of our players play with the camera zoomed far out. They like to be tactical.
Okay.
So they just have to read well from a distance, and then you can kind of go. I guess they're definitely not stylized, I guess I would say. But
Okay.
what matters most is the primary shapes read well, and then when you get closer, the details hold up.
Okay, great. So
So
kind of like an aesthetic,
this
like,
guy, I think,
yeah.
he's got a strong, he's got this sort of like bigger shapes.
Yep.
And, if you zoom out, I could see him being like he kind of has like a Dota 2 character shape where
Mm-hmm.
they focus more on like the silhouettes with it zoomed out. I don't know. I guess that's my best guess. They never told me, but
Yeah. What about the attention to detail, right? Because like if we look at this, it's not super detailed in the sense of, having all of, I don't even know what else you'd add to this, but it it has, a very specific level of detail too in it. So it's got like the rope, and the rope has some texture, and the rope looks like rope. It's kind of cool. You've got the armor in there, and you've got your primary, your secondary, your tertiary levels of detail. So you're hitting all of the bells and whistles on this.
yeah, I think that's could have been what it was. But just also overall trying to get the piece to read really well
Yep.
as a whole is very important as well.
Okay, got it. Okay, and so if somebody's trying to follow the model you are, maybe they're taking some online classes, but they're wanting to avoid, the $100,000 debt for, college. What's your recommendation? What are the steps that they should take? So you mentioned earlier, hit poly count, hit as much of the free training as you can, because you just need to stay up to date on all this stuff. But what would you say you could recommend somebody do?
Yeah, I highly recommend just when you're first starting out, choosing really strong concepts,
Mm,
not trying to do too many of your own. Here's the original concept that I chose. I just saw, it looks really awesome. So if I have a really strong, awesome looking concept to start with,
yeah,
then that gives me a really good strong start for my 3D piece that I'm going to make from it.
right.
So I highly recommend just finding really good concepts that you can do. Like, don't choose an awesome, like maybe the concept's awesome, but it's maybe out of your skill range. Just start with something that you can do, and the concept is really solid, and just try to do it really well.
What do you say to people when they say, "Yeah, I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'm going to try," and it's definitely outside their skill range, but they are determined to just try to muscle through it?
Yeah, you can do that too. You may not finish, but just try to give it your best and try to, whatever you end up with, try to make it look really polished, I guess.
Okay. But maybe I think I like this advice of, be aware you might not finish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just starting out, try to choose stuff that you can finish
Hmm.
because you need to build up your portfolio.
Right.
Choose stuff you can finish and that is going to look good.
What
Like
about,
the concept is really good.
great. And what about when you're dealing with some of the little decisions you made? So you mentioned in ArenaNet you don't necessarily have all this concept, but like if we look at this concept in your guy, you had to discover a little bit of like what is that armor on the forearm guards, the arm guards.
Mhm.
You probably had to figure that out a little bit. Like, is it overlapping scales like a snake? Is
Mhm.
it something else? Um, and you made your decision. So, what kind of advice do you have for that? Because I know little details like that can stop people.
Yeah. Find reference. Find reference of something that looks similar, or just think about what it's made out of.
Hmm.
Find reference for it, and you can try to just kind of do it and try to like make it like, oh, this kind of looks, this bumps looks like the concept, I guess. Moving on, or you can try to find some reference and really like uh, work on making it look very convincing and realistic based on the reference that you that you found. It may not look exactly like what the concept is suggesting, but
Yeah,
you can find a reference, and that is something real.
got
Like,
it.
I don't know, it could be like a scale pattern, like alligator skin,
Yep.
and you find some reference maybe of alligator skin, dark alligator skin, and just try to nail that and make it look good and convincing.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get to the boss and your process on that a little bit because I really want to get people there. But before we kind of get there, um, what do you love about this job?
Working at ArenaNet, or just like making creatures?
Just making creatures,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, well, I really like uh, working with other people to make the creatures.
Yeah.
Like, I get to work with the animators a lot
Oh,
on like the big boss creatures,
yeah.
especially the two that I have in my portfolio. I did for our raids team. So you just go in, and the point of the mission is just go and kill the bosses, basically. So we get a lot of time to just work on the creatures and try to make them feel like they're alive and that they're intimidating. And so you get to work with the animators a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be modeling in like, you'll be in Dynamesh, and then the animator may come over and be like, hey, what if we gave him a second set of arms? And you're like, oh, okay. And you go for it, and you give him the Dynamesh model, and he makes a quick test rig and tests out some poses. You can be working in your quick sketchy Dynamesh. And sorry, am I talking too loud? I see my microphone bar going way up.
No, you're talking fine. My
Okay.
Yeah,
And
no, you're
go
talking
ahead.
about the same volume as me.
Okay, that's good. You're doing these quick sketches, and
Hmm.
you're passing them off to the animator, and
Yep.
he's doing these like test poses, and you're just kind of like trying to figure out what would work good for the how can you get strong personality into the creature. And you're even the designers are coming over and they're kind of thinking like, oh, I'm thinking you might have this attack or whatever. And it's just a lot of people working together to try to create something that feels alive and has a story.
That's awesome.
I really enjoy that.
Yeah, just being part of something.
Yeah. Everyone pitching in together to make this creature as best as they can.
That's cool. What size are your teams usually?
Oh, well, if you're talking about like a full boss creature, like what I had up before this guy, it was me, and then there was one animator, and there's usually an effects artist.
Yeah.
Because Guild Wars has a bunch of magic in it, so there's lots of sparkles. There'll be a designer, usually. So I guess like 4 people usually pitching in to make and sound artist, of course. So that's like 5 people, I guess, that all kind of usually come in together.
Do you work right there with the sound guy?
I don't usually get to work with the sound people. They don't usually ask me what I think the creature sounds like. I'm sure if I went over and gave them suggestions, they would do something, but
yeah,
they kind of work on like the other side of the building.
Yeah,
far.
I had to ask because my nephew, he's over here visiting, and he's like he's obsessed with games, and sound is his thing. So.
Oh yeah, they get to work in really cool. They have, I don't know about other studios, but I assume it's the same. They got this like cool sound room with a bunch of random items, bikes and stuff, and it's like, what are they doing with that? Sometimes they'll let us in sometimes, and like we'll review the sounds, and sometimes you go in and you'll see the creature moving around making a sound. It's totally different sound from what you initially imagined the creature making. It's interesting. Yeah.
So that's interesting that they rig a Dynamesh, just a simple Dynamesh version of it, right? Just to test it out and see what the character's like.
I don't think they really like it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's necessary to just get something on the rig. We don't always have riggers available, so a lot of times we have to just reuse rigs, reuse existing rigs. So we can bring in the Dynamesh file to the rig file and just do like a quick weighting, and you can export it and just see it moving around really quick. So you can put it on the rig, get some animations playing on them, and be like, oh, I think his horns need to be bigger, or I think they need to be smaller because they're clipping into them or something.
Yeah.
Just like test out how the shapes look when he's actually playing the animations versus in his static pose in ZBrush. It really helps.
Got it.
But yeah, we don't always have riggers, but sometimes you get to work with an animator that has rigging knowledge, and they can just say, I want to add an extra set of arms to our existing rig, and let's test it out. Let's get the Dynamesh in and see what it looks like.
Nice. So that kind of leads me to one of the things that, I think it's important to kind of ask every artist that I speak to, but it sounds like, you being resourceful is a really important thing at ArenaNet, because, you may not have a concept, you may not have a rigger, you may, but what would you say are kind of the important things? So being resourceful, what else are really important things to keep in mind for people who are, let's say they're going to be day 2 on the job. You got hired, the first day you were freaked out, second day, what do they need to be prepared for?
Probably got to be prepared for your tools not working correctly. That's what happened to me. Like my first week was just like setting up my tools.
Yeah.
Like all my files weren't going to the right locations. But actually doing the work, yeah, you want to, I recommend knowing more than just like if you're going in for modeling, you're being like a character or creature artist. Sure, you got to be really good at actually making creatures, but you also need to have knowledge, at least some like working knowledge of how riggings and animations work.
Okay.
And yeah, because the more you know about the other stuff, you can get a little more creative with how cool stuff you can do with the creature. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so having as wide a skill set as you can.
I'd say try to do at least one thing really well,
Hmm.
but it doesn't hurt to have knowledge of other parts of the pipeline.
Okay, got it. I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot here, so feel free to divert it. But what do you think is like the thing that you're really good at?
Oh, I think I do a pretty good job of uh, not only like doing the prototyping of the creatures and testing things out, just sculpting. I try to be really good at sculpting, but
Mhm.
I do have some knowledge of how the rigging works. We have special rigging for like physics, making things swing around, and I try to like stay up to date with that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
I feel like I try to have a good balance of like what is possible technically, what I'm recommending. So if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Alejandro is saying T-shaped experience. So explain that a little bit more for us, Alejandro. All right, guys. So just a little bit of an update. We'll open this up for Q&A, and if Samantha has time, we'll do a little bit of crits here in a moment. But I got a few more questions for just kind of the podcasty kind of group. So let's see. This creature.
I also have some resources that I'd like to share with everyone
Okay,
before
great.
we move on to questions.
Yeah, we'll
Just throwing that out there.
we'll make that the last one right before the questions. So then, talk to me about your process for sculpting characters, creatures, things like that. Do you start with Z spheres and ZBrush? Do you start with the base mesh?
Oh, let's see. Usually at ArenaNet we have a rig that we have to start with. So if I'm at work, I'll probably grab the rig and turn it into geometry. And so grab the rig and like turn it into Dynamesh so that I know my proportions
Yeah.
that I need to match. At home, yeah, I usually just depends if I'm doing like a bust sphere, of course, if I'm doing full body. Sometimes I'll start with Z spheres, but it's also useful to sometimes just sculpt body parts and separately out of Dynamesh and just kind of like move them around. Sometimes kind of like kit bash your body parts, like sculpt an arm and then duplicate it and just move it around, make it a leg. Sometimes you get interesting shapes, or sculpt the head and move it around, make it a chest. Stuff like that can give you ideas when you're just messing around.
Got it. And how about getting texture? Yeah, it looks like we're on a we're on an ad. How about getting textures? What's your process for kind of fleshing something out? Do you use Substance?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That layer
I only
stack
use
is
them for
amazing.
textures now.
Okay, good. Yeah, I tell everybody, and I probably mention this in every interview that I can, and it's important for me to. I feel like it's important for me to mention this, but if I was starting out today, I would not touch ZBrush. I would be like all over algorithmic and everything algorithmic did, because they're at the
Yeah.
cutting edge right now. And if you can kill it in Substance Designer or Painter, then that's much more important than being one of the 100 awesome sculptors out there today.
Yeah, that's really important. It's not all about the textures though. You gotta, of course, remember you need to have a really strong sculpt to put all the textures on.
That's great. Yeah.
So you really want to be sure when you're sculpting a creature or a character, when you leave ZBrush, you really want to be sure that everything still looks really awesome still in ZBrush.
Yeah.
Because when you bring something to Substance, throw on some smart materials or whatever, things can like kind of look really cool pretty quick. Even just like throwing it on like a sphere, like whoa, chainmail on a sphere, awesome, looks so cool. So the stronger you make it look in ZBrush, it's just uphill from there when you bring it into Substance.
Got it. So how do you start your layer stack inside of Substance?
Oh, I guess I usually bring in my baked maps like my AO and cavity, and I just start balancing those out because Guild Wars 2 is not a PBR engine, so you have to bring in your baked lighting. You balance those out first, in case anyone's going to like an older MMO or anything. if you want to balance out your lighting maps first. But if it's, I guess even if it's not PBR, you can still bring in like your cavity is really helpful when, or not your cavity, your curvature is really helpful when doing creatures. So you want to kind of bring those in, balance out any like base layers, base skin textures or whatever. Just get your very base layer that you're going to be piling all your details onto. So you get your base layer, and then usually for creatures you want to add like gradients and stuff. So you want to get your base layer and gradients. If you want to make their feet darker or their head lighter, you can put those in as a starting, and just making sure everything still reads really well before you go in and add in specifics. And then once you've got like just basic shading done, I'd recommend going and like adding in details. Like if there's scales on your creature, you know their scales, just go ahead and tackle that next. Just make sure you get your base layers and colors and values and everything done first, I would say.
Got it. And Rashid, if you have your model up, I think that'd be a really good one for us to get Samantha's eyes on. So,
I also recommend
yeah.
using like the post effects in Substance. You can like turn up the contrast and saturation, so you can just, if you're working with a creature with like a lot of color, you can just turn the saturation all the way down and still check your values, make sure everything is reading really well.
Mm-hmm.
Just before I forget to say that.
Awesome. All right, why don't we look at the resources you've got for us, and then we're going to open this up for Q&A, and then we'll say goodbye to the podcast people, and we'll pop this over to some crits.
Yeah, so I got here some like cool creature people. If you're looking to do creature art, it's really important to get like some, not idols, like inspirations. You want to get some inspirations, something to a target to set for yourself. Maybe, I don't know about when you're first starting out, you kind of want to just build up your portfolio.
Right.
But eventually you need to start setting goals, like I want to head in this direction. You need to set milestones and reach those milestones, and then set a new milestone for yourself. So you always want to keep setting new milestones for yourself and keep growing.
Yeah.
So here were just like some people, like this guy, Ben Morrow. I really enjoyed looking at his creature art when I started out. He has some really cool like concept bust that he did for creatures. And Terrell Whitlatch is obviously a really great creature person to watch.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, we're pretty crazy about him at work, Gio. He's got some really strong primary shapes, but he also nails all the other forms as well.
Yeah.
Just really great creature concepting as well. Stephen Oakley got just awesome creature sketches. That's another thing. If you're looking to get into creature art, just look at sketches of creatures from great artists, and that'll really help your concepting skills. If you just look at their raw sketches.
What are we looking for? Like, what is it that you kind of notice in this?
Well, like here, for example, he's got like, I guess like thumbnails, kind of, they're real small, and like this guy's got, he's got good like curved shape, and then this guy's got like really great blobby shapes.
And I should mention we're looking at Stephen Oakley's ArtStation.
Stephen Oakley, yeah. Great creature sketches here. I just love looking at stuff like this. Like no details or anything. You're just like looking at the shapes. I guess there's like minimal details.
Yeah.
But just like looking at stuff like this is really helpful as a creature artist.
So Ben,
I love how he like thinks about what the creatures are going to do as well.
You mean in the poses and the way he draws them out?
Yeah, you see he's grabbing onto someone's neck here.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, just looking at stuff like that really helps you improve. Just constantly keep looking at good art, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And I see Paul in there, Paul Richards.
Yeah, he's got great like demons and stuff that I love looking at. I don't know if we have time to go to each portfolio.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some really great people. I looked a lot at this guy's stuff, Neville Page, when I was starting out. I really loved looking at his Avatar stuff.
Yeah.
Really great sketches.
Yeah, Neville's great.
I haven't seen too much recent stuff from him. I couldn't find, his website's kind of difficult to use, so just like Google Google Mail page creatures or something like that. You get some great results.
Yep.
And then lastly, I have like an article that our current studio director wrote up that I highly recommend when you're just starting out. Also, even if you're currently working, it's just got like 3 simple tips on how to be a better artist. It's got them down here somewhere, but it's really simple and it's really just true.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can just find them all in a list here. Somewhere he's got it. I think I regurgitated them somewhere, but it's basically use reference, don't be a dick. And what are you making art for? What is it? And you should ask yourself questions about why you're making the art. And there you go. You're a better artist.
Fantastic. 3 easy steps and a lot of hours.
Yep.
So what does this mean? If you don't mind, I'd love to talk a little bit about this. What does it mean, don't be a dick? Because I don't think most of the people are in my boot camp, nobody's, we're all just trying to get better at it. But what are some of the problems that people can kind of get into? Might be a good way to start this. And then also I'd love to know if you had a difficult situation and how you had to handle that. And I'll preface this by saying that one of my students got a job, and in the first 3 weeks he was miserable. Just miserable, because the boss was like saying, well, just figure it out, and they weren't giving him any help, and they weren't figuring it, he was just all on his own. And I understand what they were doing, because they were cycling through to just see how resourceful this person is, and they were doing it the rough way.
Yeah.
So, and I get it from a employer manager perspective. It is one strategy that somebody will use, and all companies are different. Ultimately, he worked it out, because he's highly skilled and whatnot. And he was able to finally just, make things kind of happen, and they kind of got off his case. But have you had any problems like that where you just, it's just painful, you don't know how to communicate, and, maybe there's some miscommunication?
I feel like I'm lucky. Things out of ArenaNet. ArenaNet's the only studio that I've worked at in person.
Yep.
And everything has been really great working there. The team has been really pleasant to work with. I just say for yourself, just try to stay positive and just remember that you want to work on games. Is that your dream? Okay, here you are working on games. Remember, every day you're living your dream, making games.
Right.
That helps me a lot. When I used to freelance, I guess sometimes it would be kind of difficult trying to figure out what the person wanted. But you just have to try to remember to stay polite. Remember that whoever's telling you what to do is probably paying you. So, but yeah, I haven't been in too many situations, too many rough situations, I guess. Luckily, I'll get back to you in a few years.
Okay, all right, we'll check in on this.
I just try to stay positive and just try to remember that hopefully you're doing what you love doing, what you dreamed of doing.
Yep. What about personal work? Do you have to do it? Do you get time to do it? Like, how does that factor into your life?
Oh man, a lot of days when I'm at work, I just feel burnout. I don't want to do personal work.
Yeah.
But it is very important to do. Even if you can, right now I do a lot of lunch crunching. Mm-hmm. So just on your lunch break, I'm kind of antisocial. So I just eat lunch at my desk and take that hour to just do creature sketching. Just dynamesh a creature, sketch it out real quick, bring in a marmoset, light it, move on to the next one, and try to grow with each one.
Yeah.
That's a good way if you feel like you don't have time.
Awesome. All right, let's open this.
Try to keep doing stuff, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Always try to keep sculpting and try to keep learning new things.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that is solid. So, all right, guys, let's talk questions. I do have a question here from Joseph. Other than Blender being free, is there any reason you recommend it?
I think it's really good for modeling specifically. I think it has a lot of good free tools. It's open source. A lot of people use it. There's a lot of free resources for it, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just really like its modeling tools. We have to work in Maya at work, which I
Hmm.
think a lot of studios work with. So all our tools are made for Maya.
Yeah.
But I just end up doing a lot of modeling in Blender and just importing it into Maya. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like a non-destructive modeling, so it uses modifiers. I guess that's what Max uses.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So a lot of like modifiers that you can switch on and off and mess with. I just prefer that kind of modeling, and it's free. You can freelance with it. You don't have to worry about buying it to freelance with.
It's
You
true.
know, if you're working and you want to do some freelance on your free time, or if you're a student and you want to do some freelance, you can just use Blender and you're good to go.
Did you have to demonstrate to them that you knew Maya before they hired you, or Max, or something like that?
Uh, no, I don't think I I know a lot of people at work also use Max and then just import into Maya. So I want to say that's probably a thing for other studios. It doesn't really matter what tools you use, just as long as you can make really good art, and then you can learn the studio's tools.
Totally. Got it. Yeah, that's great. Adnel is asking about traditional sculpting. Do you ever get in clay?
Well, I started just with digital sculpting. I just went from sketchbooks to digital, and now I'm trying to like get into like some traditional clay sketching. It's
Hmm.
really fun, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
But it is really fun.
Yeah. Longer though, right? Everything takes longer.
It depends on what you're trying to do. I've just done like super quick, sketchy, or I'll do like some shells or something, or
Hmm.
you're just doing. You can just like squish things like, oh, I need an arm. I'll just squish this with my hands. There we go. That's wonderful. It's sketchy. It's sketchy. It's a sketchy arm.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
It's just really fun to get in there.
Cool.
You kind of have to approach things differently, I guess. Kind
Yeah.
of do a different. If you're like me and you just started with digital, it's fun to know different ways of approaching the three-dimensional art.
Got it. All right. Well, let's say bye to the podcast, folks. All right, guys. So I think that's going to call it to a day. That's actually good timing. We can get Samantha back to her day job. Samantha, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoy listening to your interviews
Ah, cool.
and your all the stuff you put on YouTube. That really helped me when I was starting out, just listening to people talk and watching their process.
Awesome.
So it's great that I'm able to be on one, give back a little, I guess.
Yeah. No, and I'm so glad, and it's really kind of inspiring to see your journey. Coming from high school, just freelancing and going right into the game and right into Creature. I mean, that's really just a fantastic journey. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing, processing all
Oh,
that.
you're welcome. Yeah.
All right, guys, have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you at the next one. All right,
All
ciao.
right, bye guys.
Bye.